Welcome to the Sales and Marketing Playbook. We are your co-host. I'm Craig Andrews, and there's Evan Poland. And today's episode 6, we're talking about understanding how and why your prospects makes their buying decisions. And before we get started, think about it. Why and how are they making decisions? Evan, you have any feedback before we get into the intro?
Well, let's tease that I absolutely have some feedback, but let's everybody kind of think about for themselves and their own business what they think, and then we'll get to some of my thoughts that some of you will agree with, and I'm sure many of you will disagree with.
Absolutely. We like disagreeing with you, but hold on one second. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Sales and Marketing Playbook Unleashed, the premier podcast for innovative growth strategies, hosted by two seasoned experts. Meet Evan Poland, the president of Poland Performance Group, a master in sales coaching with over 2 decades of experience. Evan is not just a consultant, he's a force in sales, focusing on mindset, planning, and skill development. He's also the co-author of Selling Professional Services the Sandler Way. Joining him is Craig Andrews, partner and CEO of Beholder Agency, an expert in growth marketing. With 20 years under his belt, Craig blends marketing creativity with strategy to propel businesses forward, making Beholder Agency a leader in effective marketing solutions. Together, Evan and Craig are here to share their wisdom on winning strategies, best practices, and transformative insights that will fuel your growth. Get ready to revolutionize your sales and marketing approach right here on the Sales and Marketing Playbook Unleashed.
So, welcome to episode 6 of Sales and Marketing Playbook. Today, we're talking buyer decisions. If we all, as business owners, knew the reasons why our clients were buying things and not buying things, our life would be a lot easier. That's one of the reasons why we're going to touch upon it in this episode. So, Evan, why don't you give them an overview of the big pictures as to why customers make buying decisions?
Sure. Let me give you, at least from my perspective, why customers make their buying decisions. The other thing that I'm going to mention now, which may be counterintuitive as we get into this a little bit, I'm going to talk about it from my perspective. But what I want all of you to think about is putting yourself in your client's shoes, putting yourself in your buyer's shoes. I know from a sales side, the biggest challenge that people run into is they make assumptions and they think they know why people need something, why people want something. So they will go and kind of tell people why their product is good, why their service is good, tell you why they should be, you should be working with them. What you really want to think about is from the client's perspective, what's important to them? What's in it for me for them? What do they really care about? And then you need to see whether or not your marketing pitch, whether or not your sales pitch matches up with what your clients need and what your clients are looking for. If they match up, you're probably having a lot of success. If the thought never entered your mind in terms of thinking about why would people actually work with me, why would people actually buy my stuff, then you may be struggling right now. So as we get into, and as Craig and I talk about from our own perspectives, big picture, what folks are looking for, just want all of you to start to really think about, okay, have I put myself in my client's shoes? Do I really know why they want to make the decisions they want to make, why they want to buy what they buy? Yeah, and we'll probably get into this in a future episode, but have you ever surveyed your clients, your prospects, either formally or informally, to find out from their perspective what they're looking for? So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through. For me, from my perspective, I find that big picture, there's 2 reasons why people make a decision. One, they want to get something that they don't currently have. Is this going to make my life easier? Is this going to make me more money? Is this going to make me look better? Whatever it might be. On the opposite side, I find that a lot of people are motivated by avoiding pain. Okay, I'm currently working with this company. I currently have this service. I'm working with this firm, and I hate them. They're a pain in the butt to deal with. I don't feel like I'm getting value for what I'm spending. This isn't fixing the problem I thought it was going to fix, and I want to get away from what I'm currently doing so that I can get something else, something better, and I want to alleviate the issue that I'm running into. And I find that sometimes your product could have gain, sometimes it could be to avoid pain. but you'll also find that oftentimes your buyers are motivated by different things. Some people don't care about the gain at all. Just help me no longer have this issue. And other people are like, give me that shiny new object, give me that toy, give me that new tech. And that's what they really motivates them. Craig, I don't know what you see from your perspective.
I see it. You said it all. You said it all for us. I want to add to it, and by saying, a lot of times that's done by value, right? What they consider valuable is also play into that. So where one client might be in a position that they find value in their time and getting their time back, others might see value in just getting that glad hand saying, thank you, I appreciate it. Right. So part of the process I believe you're speaking about here, Evan, is really understanding your customer base better. From a marketing perspective, I'll hit the valuable button again. Dun, 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 dun. Being able to be in a position that you get data, right? And all that stuff of asking those questions and asking questions deeper. Most of us are all victim of just serving clients, but we never really go back and ask them what made us valuable to you now to the time you hired us on. And that's a lot of time what leads to them maybe moving on past us in terms of not having the client stick around year after year.
Absolutely. The other mistake I see a lot of companies see a lot of firms make along those lines is all of the training they do is focused on product training. And this is what makes us really great. I was just on, I had a coaching and training call today with an IT managed services company. And part of what we talked about is them asking questions to get their potential clients to open up about what are their biggest headaches, what are their biggest challenges, what are they looking for, what are they sick and tired of. And then once the sales team's able to gather all of that data, they can then match up the problems to different services they provide and show the client how their services can help to fix the problems. And they get all kinds of buy-in from their clients about, okay, this is great. This is exactly what I'm looking for. They would get a completely different reaction if they just went in going, this is why our company is the best. This is why you should be working with us. These are all of the things that we have. If there's not buy-in from the customer, there's not going to be that bell that goes off over their head. There's not going to be that urgency to do something.
Yep. And I would actually challenge even that a little bit. I would say after you got that data, double down more and try and get more information, right? Because even though you got that and you got the reaction, we all do it. It's quick to go, okay, buy the product now. You like it, then buy it now. Versus what are these secondary or tertiary problems that they may be having that can, one, help serve them better, two, take the salesperson in a direction to sell other products that they deliver, and three, be in a position where they feel comfortable with you, thus building your brand better because you've served them in ways they didn't think that you could do it. That's another way of introducing another service.
Craig, you're jumping about 6 episodes ahead here. Okay. So we're going to be keeping people in suspense for a while.
Okay, I got you.
When it comes to the sales process, one of the biggest mistakes that I see organizations make, doesn't matter the product they're selling, the service they're selling, they hear just a little bit of what the problem is, and then they want to jump in with the solution and let me tell you why we're great. Let me tell you, and be quick to solve rather than going, hey, Craig, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Can you give me an example or two? What's been going on there? How has that impacted you? How has that impacted your business?
Yeah, I feel like I should be sitting on a couch getting psychological work right now.
Little known fact, my first field before going into sales coaching and sales consulting was the mental health field. And if you've met some of my clients before, and I know you have, you'll know how valuable that is in the work that I do and the people that I work with. That's
why you're a great salesperson, pretty much. You use that data to take yourself forward. Perfect. I didn't know that about you, but now I know. Now I know you're playing games with me. Let's talk about the importance of conducting the research, right? And the buyer personas a little bit. The personas are important because they give us a guideline, right? So in the process of the buying decisions, it gives us guidelines to make sure that we're hitting that business the proper way. And I think that if you do it right, the personas will give you information that you perceived. And then when you have those conversations, it actually solidifies what your thought is, or it makes changes to that. Right. And I think that if you can do that appropriately, and it really comes to having the right information and the data, taking it forward, you can really do some serious stuff when it comes to delivering the marketing stuff to the salesperson.
Great. And Craig, I just want to make sure our audience is all on the same page in case some people aren't familiar with the term personas. Personas is basically like the avatar, or like if you were to kind of put together a skeleton of what type of client you're looking for. Mm-hmm. Is that what we're talking about in terms of a persona?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You say avatar, I say persona. I think avatar, I think movies, but we don't want to go down there.
So, and with avatars, do most companies have just kind of one avatar or one different type of buyer that they're looking for?
No. You want to set up an avatar for every type of personality that would come across your business, right? And if you're a business that has multiple services, multiple products, you're technically coming up with a new avatar per product, per service. Why? Because at the end of the day, somebody who might be one of your higher end clients has a different personality, read different books, have different thought patterns than somebody who might be just in the beginning stages of their business, for instance, or just starting a brand new product that they're delivering to the audiences. So those are different personas that you would market to in different ways, right? If you know that your potential client reads the business journal, that person might be different than the one who is just reading about how to build said product. I'm just throwing examples out, right? So you want to create a persona for each, and you might introduce new personas as you learn more from the data that you have.
So absolutely, and personas can change and evolve over time.
Absolutely.
So who you're selling to and who you're marketing to today may be different than who you're selling or who you're marketing to, tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And just to make something that could be complicated even more complicated, if you're in front of your ideal potential client, especially if you're selling a B2B kind of service, not only are you looking at the persona of the organization, but you may have 3 or 4 different decision makers involved in purchasing your product or service. And each of those decision makers may have different motivators. There may be the owner or the CFO who cares about making money or saving money. There may be the user who's saying, okay, is this product or service going to make my life easier, or is it going to make my life harder? There may be 1 or 2 other people. So not only are we looking at the personas for the companies or for the consumers who we're looking to attract, but sometimes there may be multiple people involved in determining whether or not your product or service is being purchased. Again, even if you are selling to consumers, it may be a product for kids. So you may need the kids to want it, but then the adults to actually have to sign off on it and be willing to pay for it. So something that we need to think through, and the more that we can spend time thinking through it at the beginning, the more successful our strategies will be down the road.
I would actually have a question for our audience base who's listening and watching. How many people are actually putting together personas, right? So if you have an idea, or if you know that you are, put it in the comments. How many of you guys have actually went through the process of creating personas for your business and the people you're prospecting? I'd be interested to see what the comments there are. When you're looking at it from the perspective of the length of time to make the personas, if you're really doing it right, it should take you some time in the beginning, because you're really trying to break down psychologically what's happening in the business. And when you're taking the time to do it the proper way, you'll actually get more riches because of the investment in time you've made to produce those personas.
And Craig, you know what else I'd be interested to see in the comments?
What's that?
I know for me personally, there are 4 or 5 different personas that I'm targeting. Yeah. I'd love to know, for the people listening to the podcast, how many different types of personas are you targeting? Is it less than 4 or 5? Is it more than 4 or 5? But I think if we can kind of get our arms around that, it would just be interesting to see. Yeah.
So if you have personas and you have those numbers, put it in the comments. We'd love to hear them, and we'll actually talk about it in the next show if it's there. So in terms of what's the next step you want to talk about here, Evan? We talked about personas, strategies. Do you have any strategies about developing them?
Yeah. So 2, 1 I just hit on a little bit, and that is, once you get in front of your prospective client, understand that different types of decision makers have different motivators. And you really need to think through, and this is one of my favorite terms, you really need to think through the WIFM. WIFM
What is
stands
that?
for the WIFM.
With them.
What's in
Excuse
it?
me. This is not a child show.
So WIFM stands for what's in it for me.
Wow.
So I find that most people aren't going to make a buying decision, aren't going to decide to move forward unless they know what's in it for me. Is it going to make me money? Is it going to save me money? Is it going to make my life easier? Is it going to make my job easier? Is it going to make me look good to other people in the organization if I bring it in? And again, different folks within that buyer organization may have different WIFMs. Your different buyer personas, your high-end buyer may have a different WIFM than your low-end buyer. So you really need to think through, okay, if I'm sitting in my client's shoes, what would I want to get out of this? What would they want to get out of this? How can I articulate it? And even better, if you want to go to the advanced class, what kinds of questions could I ask my prospects so that that light bulb goes off over their head? And rather than me trying to convince them of what the WIFM is, I'm asking them the right question so they get that thing that snaps in their head to go, okay, I need this, or this is the best option for me because it's going to do X, Y, Z, and I see that now.
Yep.
If you can get to that point, no one is going to talk them out of that decision. If you're a little bit more expensive, if you're a little harder to use, they're not going to care. If they understand that with them and they believe that you can bring that to the table for them.
It's interesting that you use that. And I'm going to start using that term with them. That's a good one.
You just got to credit me the first time.
I'll credit you all day. I love it. With them. So and because a lot of our stuff is data driven in terms of marketing and so forth, I tend to look at that stuff from a perspective of software, right? So, we are willing to spend extra money on certain software that we're purchasing because it makes our lives easier in finding the information for our clients, where the actual average person who would do marketing in-house may not invest into that, right? So the with them in that case for us in a marketing perspective is we'll spend thousands of dollars on software because it gets us the answer like this, and we can take off, right? So I like that analogy of the with them, because for me, it's going to save me time, even though it's a little more expensive, but it's going to save me time, and it's going to allow me to get the answers that I'm looking for when we're serving our clients in the proper way. Is there another example that you have there, or a way maybe we can work out a strategy on another way of using with them? Because I like that a lot.
So I think really the key is for people to put themselves in their prospect shoes, put themselves in the client's shoes. And one other factor, because we haven't made this complicated enough, that we should really pull in, is understanding who your competition is. Because nobody out there is selling or marketing in a vacuum.
Yep.
There's very few people that I know where they are the only ones in their space. So you really need to think about, and we talked about this in a previous episode, how do you position yourself versus the competition? How is your WIFM different or more impactful than the WIFM if they were to go with one of your competitors? And make sure in your marketing messaging, make sure in the questions that you're asking your prospects, you're really kind of laser focused on why you versus somebody else that they may be talking to.
So the competition is an interesting angle, right? Because I've run into clients who say, I have no competition. Now, you and I talked about this recently as well. The thing that's happened through COVID is that new businesses have been developed, right? So us here in the Philadelphia market, we might be talking to people in California, talking to people in Atlanta, talking to people in New Jersey and everywhere else. So our competition base has really expanded because of online work, right? Where we may used to be years ago where if you had a service that you were looking for, you would probably look for somebody relatively close to you. But now you could be competing against somebody in a whole other state, a whole other country, technically, right? And so that with them becomes even more difficult. What would be, let me say this. I would suggest doing an online search in the space that you're in the industry that you're in, and getting a better idea of what other WIFMs are, and coming up with a good average to make yourself different. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. There is an elephant in the room that we're not discussing that I think that we should bring up.
Yeah.
And that is, I believe almost everybody in our audience, regardless of the service that they're selling or the product they have, all have the exact same competitor. And they're not thinking about how to sell against that competitor when they're out there, and again, understanding how and why prospects make their buying decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That number one competitor doing nothing at all. Great question for you.
Good one.
In general, how do people feel about change?
You mean that little thing called change? Yeah, a lot of people struggle with change. We've done it like we've always done it.
Do people in general like change?
No, because that requires a lot of work to make change.
Change requires doing something different.
Yep.
It requires work. It's
looking at things different ways.
Looking at things different ways. It requires going into the unknown a little bit. And
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I may complain about this, but at least I know what I'm getting. Am I willing to go out and try something and not know what I'm going to get?
Yep.
So not only are you selling against your competition, but you're selling against people's natural inclination to do nothing at all.
Yep.
And just keep doing what they've always been doing. So when we're talking about the WIFM in future episodes, when we talk about, going through the sales funnel and going through the sales cycle and the sales process,
Mm-hmm.
your WIFM needs to be compelling enough that people are going to be willing to go away from the brand that they've always used, move away from the service provider who they've at least gotten used to, what they can expect from that service provider.
Yeah.
And if your WIFM isn't compelling enough, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing. They may complain about it,
Yep.
but it's just easier to keep doing what I've always done.
So here's a question I have for you. What would be some of the telltale signs that they're stuck in their WIFM or stuck in their way of always doing things? What would be the cues that would let you know you're stuck? You can't get out of this.
Great question. For me, a major red flag is when I go in and ask how long the problem's been going on. And they tell me the problem's been going on for a really long time. And when I ask what they've done to change it or what they've done about it, the answer is, well, we really haven't done anything, or we've looked at things before, but we just really haven't pulled the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
That scares me to death. That lets me know that these folks are so used to whatever that pain is, whatever that problem is, it's going to be very, very difficult to move them out of that spot that they're currently in to get them to try to do something differently.
And so part of that's a great answer. And so part of that, what does that tell you or people that you're training from a sales perspective? What should they do? Right? How do they know the indications like it's time to jump ship? It is dead.
So what they really need to do, if at all possible, is try to quantify the impact of dealing with that problem and not making change. What has that cost in terms of dollars and cents, in terms of frustration, in terms of holding back growth, but really trying to quantify the impact and then turning around and asking their prospective buyer, hey, is this a big enough problem for you to do something about? Or have you decided I'm just going to live with it? And if they're really wishy-washy, I'm probably going to, ask one or two more questions before cutting bait. But if I can't get them to move, if I can't get them to change, or my guess is we've all come against the prospect who thinks they know everything,
Mm-hmm.
and that thinks that their way is the right way, and refuses to change. I'm actually have a challenge right now with a client that there's somebody within the client who everything they do is right, nothing. If you can't change that, you got to get out of there. You're just your head's gonna hurt from banging it up against the wall too many times.
And so there's nothing that holds you back, right? Let's say it's an elephant for you. It's a huge client. Do you still what is your anecdote for that?
It could be a $1 billion company. If they're not giving me any of that, it doesn't matter if it's a $1 billion company, doesn't matter if it's a startup that's pre-revenue. If I've determined that it's not going to be a fit and I'm not getting any of that revenue, I am only hurting myself and keeping myself from going out and talking to other prospects by continuing to go, oh, I don't know. This is a really big company. It would be a really great opportunity. I know they could afford to work with me. Guess what? If they never sign the contract and they don't pull the trigger, then it's not worth anything. And I also find, and we'll get into this in a future episode as well, oftentimes when a salesperson doesn't have very much in the pipeline, they don't want to let something go because, oh my God, now I may have to go out and talk to more strangers and prospect and do that really uncomfortable stuff. I love everything but the prospecting, and just put me in front of somebody and I'll talk to them.
There's that change thing again.
There's that change thing again. And there's that, okay, well, I'm comfortable. And again, if I convince myself that there's still a chance, I won't feel bad, or I won't be uncomfortable that there's not enough in the pipeline to hit the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. It's
a dangerous trap.
It is. And from a marketing perspective, I mean, you imagine everybody's putting a lot of resources into landing that client. And ultimately, if it's not moving on, there's less information passed across, or the messaging is pulled wrong because, again, we stuck with it. Because one of the things that we've heard from our perspective is, hey, I got this really big client. We really want to get this guy. Okay, let's talk about what he's doing. We might see it's time to move on. Like, this guy ain't it, right? But they'll go, no. Let's create some more stuff. Let's put some more money to it. Let's put some more advertising to him. This is the type of guy we want, and we're trying to give the information. So part of that person who's always done it, it's always right, is dangerous, because at the end of the day, when it doesn't work, which we already know, especially if we're doing the sales and we're doing the marketing, the guy making the decision, we already know it's not going to work. We're stuck in a position of dealing with it after the fact. And they go, why didn't you tell me? Right? Why didn't you tell me it wasn't going to work?
We've been really, really busy. Why didn't we hit our goals this year?
Yeah, good one. Yep.
So, last I, and I continue to talk to all kinds of different companies all the time. There's almost no companies out there that I've worked with or I talk to that get paid by the proposal. Almost none of them get paid for the free consult, get paid by the meeting. And even if they're getting a little bit from the consult, they're not really making money unless that client fully engages and becomes a full-on client.
Yeah.
So you really need to think about, okay, should I be investing all of this time and all of this money? And is there a WIFM compelling enough? And have I differentiated myself enough that somebody wants to work with me? Or should I be spending that time going out and finding 4 other prospects that have that same exact persona, knowing that there's a good chance that one of those will come in?
And then I think one of the last points here, talking about the ethical side of things, there's an ethics to this process, right? So there's people who can, I'll say this, I'm a big basketball fan, you know that. But data can be altered, right? You can alter data to work to your advantage. And the danger behind that, and the ethical part of that, is making sure that you're reading the data for as pure as it is. And sometimes it's the beer goggles that kind of dulls your view of the reality. And it's very important to make sure that the information that's passed across is as pure as possible, especially when it's going from sales to marketing and working together to make sure that we hit our goals at the end of the year. I've been in situations where people would read the information from a marketing perspective wrong, cost the company money, and then don't want to do the blame game and the pointing thing, right? And that's important when you're talking about the ethical side of the buying decision, is making sure that the customers that you're serving understand what you're serving, so that you're not walking into a lemon of a client.
Yep.
Right. And I think that that's an important part, from at least from our perspective. What's your side of thought in terms of maybe things that happened ethically that didn't quite hit home the way it should?
You've got everything from people gaming the system. People, data and statistics are great, but you can manipulate statistics and do it in such a way where it ends up not actually being true. Sometimes. Sometimes the symptoms don't necessarily add up to the overall diagnosis, and we just need to keep that in mind. Yeah. And we need to make sure as best we can that we're going in and looking at it with a clear head, because the other thing we can do is, if I've got data in front of me and I want that data to tell a certain story, I can go a far way and I can make numbers do different things so that
Mhm.
that data will tell me the story that I want to hear. But that may not necessarily be best for business.
That's right.
And that may not necessarily help me get my goals. And unfortunately, sometimes I've seen people want to be right so badly
Mhm.
that they will try to be right to their own detriment
That's right.
and
It happens
miss out on huge opportunities.
It happens all the time. And it happens from a marketing perspective all the time because they've spent so much time. And here we go again. Here's that change factor that's important to understand when you're talking about playing with buyer. Let's put it this way: the more successful companies have this buying decision process pretty down, right?
Mhm.
And they know how to be dynamic and they know how to adjust the information and they have the proper software and the proper internal system in place to make sure that this information stays fluid enough that the sales and marketing team can be efficient. We've said it many times before. If your sales and marketing team are overly grinding, there's probably a kink in the armor somewhere. Because if you know the people, you've asked the right questions, you continue to ask the right questions, the answers almost fall into your lap realistically, right? Whether it be stick around with them or jump ship, or hey, my client's asking for this problem and pain, which we've talked about in past episodes, and we just need to solve those problems.
Yep. And oftentimes the most difficult thing for somebody to say is, hey, I was wrong.
Yes.
I thought this would work. Let's cut bait now
Mhm.
and let's go with another strategy because we're not getting the results that we want to get.
One of the hardest things to say. So if you guys have anything that you guys want to talk about, if you have any questions about buying decisions, put them in the comments. Let's take a look at them. We'll try to answer it in future episodes or bring it up on our social or LinkedIn accounts. So Evan, before I get into the closing here, what are we talking about in future episodes?
Upcoming, we've got episodes talking about everybody's favorite word, accountability.
Mhm.
We're going to be talking about elevator pitches. We're going to be talking about value proposition. We're going to be talking about personal branding. At some point, we'll dive into to LinkedIn, to other social media platforms, and again, how to approach those from a sales and marketing perspective. So stay tuned.
And so, if you guys would love to watch the full episodes of past episodes that we have, you're welcome to tune in and look at our podcast on YouTube, where we have all of the past episodes there and ready to look at. We also post frequently on LinkedIn. We post on Instagram. We post on Twitter. So, but in terms of seeing the full episodes, you can find that on YouTube. I'm Craig Andrews. This is Evan Poland. We look forward to seeing you guys in the future. And we are out. Evan, great talking to you again.
Great talking to you too, Craig.
Talk soon.
Thank you for joining us on this exhilarating journey through the world of sales and marketing. Remember, the playbook is in your hands and the possibilities are limitless. Keep exploring, experimenting, and innovating, and watch as your business reaches unprecedented levels of success. Don't forget to subscribe to the Sales and Marketing Playbook Unleashed on all major podcast platforms, and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn for even more exclusive content. Until next time, keep hustling and keep winning.